The Jones family arrived at their new home. It was a moment they had been eagerly anticipating for months. It was a Victorian mansion with tall, narrow windows and a steep, gabled roof. The architecture was both grand and imposing, a relic from a bygone era. The house stood on a hill overlooking the town, offering a panoramic view that was both breathtaking and slightly eerie. John Jones parked the car in the driveway, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. His wife Mary and their daughter Lily got out, their faces lighting up with anticipation. They were excited to start their new life, imagining the countless memories they would create in this grand old house. But the family's excitement quickly dissolved into unease. The house, despite its grandeur, had an unsettling aura. The house loomed over them, casting long shadows in the afternoon sun, as if it were watching them. The air felt heavy and still, almost as if it were holding its breath. The family entered the house, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. It was dark and dusty inside, with cobwebs hanging from the corners and dust motes dancing in the dim light. The air was thick with the smell of decay, a testament to the house's long abandonment. As they explored, they discovered a large antique mirror at the end of the upstairs hallway, its surface clouded with age. The mirror was ornately framed and bolted to the wall, as if it had always been there, waiting for them. It seemed out of place, like a single discordant note in a forgotten melody, adding to the house's mysterious atmosphere. Lily was immediately drawn to the mirror, her curiosity piqued by its ancient allure. She stood in front of it, gazing at her reflection, her eyes wide with wonder. The reflection seemed to stare back at her with a strange, knowing smile, as if it held secrets of its own. Mary Jones attempted to remove the mirror. She didn't like the way it looked. It felt wrong. But the bolts holding it in place were rusted solid. She couldn't budge them. That night, Mary lay in bed. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The house creaked and groaned around her. It was unsettling. Then she heard it. It was a whisper. It seemed to come from the hallway. It was faint and indistinct. It seemed to slither through the darkness just beyond the edge of her hearing. Mary told her husband about the whispers. John dismissed her concerns. He said it was just the old house settling. But Mary knew better. She felt a growing sense of dread. There was something wrong with the house. John Jones tried to ignore the mirror. It had been there since he moved in, an antique piece that came with the house. He couldn't explain the feeling it gave him. It was more than just unease. It was a deep, unsettling dread. It was like a living presence watching his every move. The mirror seemed to have eyes that followed him wherever he went. He began to avoid the hallway altogether. The mere thought of passing by it sent shivers down his spine. One evening he couldn't avoid it any longer. The upstairs bathroom was the only one with hot water. He needed to use the upstairs bathroom. The thought of a cold shower was unbearable. John walked quickly down the hallway, keeping his eyes averted. He tried to focus on the end of the hallway, but the mirror's presence was overpowering. As he passed the mirror, he felt a cold chill. It was as if the temperature dropped several degrees. He couldn't resist a quick glance. It was a mistake. His curiosity got the better of him. In the mirror's reflection, he saw a flicker of movement. It was brief but unmistakable. A figure, shrouded in shadow, seemed to stand behind him. It was tall and menacing, its features obscured. John whirled around, heart pounding. There was nothing there. The hallway was empty. John tried to shake off the feeling of unease. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He told himself it was his imagination. Mirrors play tricks on the mind, he thought. But deep down, he knew that something wasn't right. The mirror held a secret, one that he was afraid to uncover. The house, and the mirror within it, held a darkness he couldn't comprehend. It was a darkness that seemed to reach out and touch his very soul. Lily, however, was not afraid of the mirror. She was drawn to it. She would often stand in front of it, lost in her reflection. One day, Lily was playing in the hallway. She stopped in front of the mirror. She tilted her head, admiring her reflection. But as she looked, a horrifying change came over the image before her. The reflection was no longer her own. It was the face of a woman. Her face was pale and gaunt. Her eyes were hollow and black. Her lips were pulled back in a silent scream. Lily stumbled back in terror. She ran to her parents, screaming, but when they went to look, the mirror was empty. Only their concerned faces stared back at them. Section 5. Trapped Reflections. John didn't believe Lily's story at first. He thought it was just another one of her vivid imaginations running wild. He thought she was just having nightmares, the kind that children often have after hearing spooky tales. But Mary had seen the look in her daughter's eyes. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something more real. She knew Lily was telling the truth. There was a sincerity in her voice that couldn't be ignored. John tried to rationalize the events. He wanted to believe there was a logical explanation. He suggested it was a trick of the light, or perhaps a draft causing the mirror's surface to distort. Maybe it was just an old mirror playing tricks on their minds. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That night, John woke to the sound of his daughter screaming. It was a blood-curdling scream that sent chills down his spine. He rushed to her room, his heart pounding in his chest. Lily was sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with terror. She looked as if she had seen a ghost. She pointed at the mirror that hung in her room, a smaller, less ornate one than the one in the hallway. "She's trapped," Lily cried, her voice trembling. "The lady from the mirror, she's trapped inside this one." Her words echoed in the room, filling it with an eerie silence. Section 6. Desperate Measures. John knew they couldn't stay in the house any longer. He loved his family dearly. He wouldn't let anything hurt them. Desperate for a solution, he decided to try and cover the mirror. He found a heavy black cloth in the attic. He draped it over the mirror, hoping to block its evil. But the next morning, the cloth was gone. The mirror stood revealed. It seemed to gleam in the morning light. John felt a chill run down his spine. The house was fighting back. Section 7. The Escape. Mary knew what they had to do. They had to leave the house. It was the only way to escape the mirror's evil. She told John to pack their things. They were leaving immediately, but as she turned to go, Mary felt a surge of defiance. She wouldn't let this house win. She grabbed a heavy candlestick. She raised it above her head. She brought it crashing down on the mirror's surface. The mirror didn't shatter. It remained intact, as if mocking her attempt to destroy it. A cold, hollow laugh seemed to echo through the house. Mary dropped the candlestick. It clattered on the hardwood floor. Section 8. Lingering Fear. The family fled the house. They left everything behind. They didn't care. They just wanted to escape. They drove through the night. They didn't stop until they reached the next town. They found a motel on the outskirts of town. It was a rundown place, but it felt safe. They checked in under assumed names. They just wanted to forget about the house on the hill. But the mirror was not so easily forgotten. It haunted their dreams. It whispered to them in the dark. It followed them everywhere they went. It would never let them go. Section 9. Unanswered Questions. The Jones family never returned to the house. They sold it quickly, telling the real estate agent that they had to move for work. They didn't mention the mirror. They didn't want to scare away potential buyers. But the mirror remained. It hung in the hallway, waiting for its next victims. It was a silent sentinel. It guarded the house's dark secrets. It waited patiently for the next family to fall under its spell. What was the mirror's purpose? Where did it come from? And who was the ghostly woman trapped within its depths? These questions lingered in the air, unanswered and unsettling. Section 10. The Mirror's Gaze. The new owners of the house never suspected the evil that lurked within. They were a young couple, excited to start a family. They would learn soon enough. The mirror would claim them, just like it had claimed the Jones family. The mirror held a dark and ancient